Well, good afternoon or evening, everyone. This is Robin in California. I'm excited to host this call again today. I know that we have some new people that are either on the call or will be listening to this call, and we want to welcome you. This is our Avini family call. We have a special guest today, though. We are so excited about that. We'll introduce him in just a moment. I had a couple of quick testimonies that we wanted to bring to you today, because our special guest, Rick Deitsch, our biochemist, is going to be focusing. He can share whatever he wants to, but he's also going to focus on our Zmunity product. And several of us have some wonderful testimonies already. Darren, would you like to come on first and just share what's going on with you and Georgia on that?
Sure. We've been on the products for just over 10 weeks. And the Zmunity, we take it in the morning and evening, and we haven't had to take our allergy meds at all. So works great.
Cool. How many do you take at a time?
Well, when we started, I was doing 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. I'm kind of a big guy, so I started doing 2 and 2. Works great for me. So
awesome. Great. Thank you, Darren. I really appreciate it. That's a big deal to a lot of us. Rosemary in Oregon, one of our leaders also, would you come on and share what you have about the Zmunity or the previous product that we had before that? But we now know that our Zmunity product is even more powerful than what you and I have used before.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing stuff. And I think perhaps one of the most underestimated products that we have, because who thinks of mushrooms, right? You throw them in your noodles or something, but these are really special. And our first experience with medicinal mushrooms came with our dog, who had a very serious blood condition that ruptured her spleen. And of course, she was taking our Zeolite, and I also gave her our mushroom product. And the thing that helped her the most, I think, again, overlooked, is that the magical biochemistry of this, Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that these mushrooms have an anti-angiogenesis effect. They prohibit the growth of extra blood vessels that are weak, in this particular kind of canine cancer. And I am saying the word cancer in relation to animals only. It's a very aggressive kind of thing. And so the way it grows is it just keeps growing lots of blood vessels. And so taking this medicinal mushroom, I believe, helped her to quell that. So she wasn't producing all of those additional blood vessels. We got to keep our dog, by the way. She had a terrible prognosis, and we got to keep her. And that's my main one. But as far as immune support, if you're feeling a little low, or you feel like you've been exposed to something and you're only taking 1 a day or 1 twice a day, I would just go ahead and double it, because we're talking mushrooms, they're food, right? They're special magical food. And you won't hurt yourself if you up your dose.
Awesome. Thank you, Rosemary. I appreciate that. And our family has just benefited so tremendously by our products, and all of our products, as Rosemary said. And the Zmunity has been very important to me in menopause, premenopause, postmenopause, just flying through it with amazing results and not having the hot flashes. And I'd been taking the Zeolite, our Cell Defender Zeolite, Rick Zeolite, for many, many years. And that had helped me tremendously with some issues that I was having when I was going through the premenopause and moving into all that. But then when I added the Rick's mushroom product, I stopped having hot flashes at night. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work exactly the same for every woman, but amazing what can happen when your body gets the right help. And I'm just going to make a disclaimer, as Rosemary did very carefully there. We have natural products. We don't make any medical claims. We don't need to make medical claims. These are natural products that help the body heal itself. And the body is a miraculous healing machine. It was created miraculously, and it can heal itself when it gets the right help. So with that, I would like to introduce our just favorite biochemist, Rick Deitsch, who has created a lot of what we have to offer. And then we also have some partnerships. I don't know if he wants to speak about that too. Maybe Rick, just tell us why you're excited about Avini. We know it's been a lot of work, but also joining, having Dr. Samuelson join you and you guys just creating these awesome products for us. We are so blessed. And I'm just going to turn the call over to you, and we'll come on in when you're done sharing what you have to share.
Thanks, Robin. So it's interesting because, as you know, going back to 1998, that was my first experience with multi-level marketing. I was a research biochemist doing computer adaptive drug design, working principally on cancer drugs, but I was also working on pain drugs from cone snail venom. So we were milking snails and creating drugs from cone snail venom when I needed to make some money. I was married, and so I got a job at Rexall, and the one division, they had a $200 million network marketing division, and it was my first experience with network marketing. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. For the first time ever, I got to make a product, do the research, and then talk to the actual users of that product to educate them, answer their questions. And I just fell in love with the concept of distribution this way. You go to a store and you have a product in the store shelf, and there's a shelf behind that product. With all of our products, there's a person behind those products. And I'll give you another example. One of the earlier products I made for Rexall was for prostate health. And Rexall, we did a lot of what they called multi-channeling. So we'd have like a simplistic formula that would sell at Walmart, a little more complex formula that would sell at GNC, and then the really amazing formula that would sell through network marketing. But it was the same core ingredients with synergies of those ingredients. So there was one prostate product I made, and it was in GNC. And I walked into GNC and I saw it on the shelf, and I asked the guy at GNC what it was for. And he said, "Oh, I think that's for heart. It's for your heart." I'm like, "No, it's for your prostate." Who's training you guys? So it's exciting to me that you guys get educated. You know what the products are for. We give you all the information in the back office. And today I'm going to really focus on the Zmunity. But if you go to your back office, I created this white paper. Where's the thing? This white paper is in your back office. It goes into all the mushrooms in the product, the zeolite in the product, the synergy between them, all the research and references that go into this. And I spoke with Robin earlier today. What I'd like to do is a PowerPoint presentation that's like my master class that I did for the zeolite. I'll do for the mushroom. We won't do that tonight, but I'll put that together with an entire presentation, and it'll be just like the white paper. It'll start with, what is your immune system? How does your immune system work? Because it's very complicated. And what a lot of people kind of understand or don't is the immune system is both good and bad. We need an immune system for protection, but an overactive immune system can be really, really dangerous. And we see that with autoimmune diseases like multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, Crohn's disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. All these autoimmune diseases are a hyperactive immune system. Even COVID, most of the side effects, most of the symptoms of COVID aren't the virus. It's caused by basically what they call a cytokine storm. That's your overactive immune system reacting to a novel virus. And so you want your immune system to be strong and reactive, but you want it modulated. You want a good immune system reaction, not an over immune system reaction. I'll give you an example. So echinacea. Echinacea became huge in the 90s, huge product. And they said, it's a great product. If you get sick, you take this and you get better. So echinacea became a kind of a medicine chest product for a lot of people. But what we found out is that because it causes your immune system to be more reactive, it's actually dangerous to take it every single day. It actually creates a more hyperimmune reaction. The best way to use echinacea is during cold and flu season, and the first hint of a cold or a flu. That's when you take echinacea. You can't use it every day because it increases immune system reactivity. It doesn't modulate immune system activity. So one of the things I'm going to talk about is immunomodulation. Modulating the immune system so it works the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. And that's where this comes in. And Robin already mentioned, this was based on research that goes back. The initial product we had was a single mushroom, where I then added my zeolite to it. And that has an incredible story that I'm going to talk about. And then in 2011 or 2010, we added 5 more mushrooms. So it was 6 mushrooms. And it wasn't a micronized formula. This is a micronized formula of 7 different mushrooms. And I'll talk about the synergies of these, but understand that this is very special. This isn't like shiitake you buy in the grocery store and reishi you buy in the grocery store. And you know, this isn't just these regular mushrooms. These are medicinally grown mushrooms. And it's interesting because if you know about natural products chemistry, we get a lot of dietary supplement ingredients, nutritional ingredients, and drugs from natural products. In fact, about 80% of drugs come from natural products, come from nature somewhere. Even aspirin originally came from willow bark. The ancient Egyptians used to boil willow bark and put it on their head for a headache. So most drugs come from natural products in some way, shape, or form. So we know about mushrooms, you know about mushrooms use in medicine, but most of these drugs that come from natural sources are created by the plant or the fungus or even the animal because of stress. A lot of the components that we use, the compounds that are beneficial in these, especially plants and fungus, is because the plant or the fungus is being attacked. It's under stress. So it makes these protective compounds, these biomolecules that defend it. Okay, so it wards off bacterial and viruses and mutagenesis to protect itself. So the way these mushrooms are grown, this is absolutely ingenious, is they're actually grown in competition with each other. So all these different mushroom species are growing on the same decaying plant material, which is what fungus do. Fungus eats decaying plant material. They grow on trees, they grow in soil. They're actually eating carbon-based material. But they grow these mushrooms in competition with each other. So they're fighting. They're always fighting. And because they're fighting, they create these amazing molecules. Primarily, the key molecule is beta-glucan. And beta-glucan is a long-chain starch that is used as a signaling molecule in our immune system. And there's different types of beta-glucans based on their structure. The one that we're most interested in is called 1316 beta-glucan. And these mushrooms are incredibly high, the highest levels I've ever seen in a natural product of 1316 beta-glucan. And if I had to describe what 1316 beta-glucan is, the best analogy I can use, and you guys have heard me say this before, it's like the walkie-talkies of the immune system. It's the compound, it's the molecule that lets immune system cells talk to each other. So imagine you have an army and they've got no walkie-talkies, they can't talk to each other. That's an army in disarray, it's not going to function. But when your immune system has this 1316 beta-glucan, all the different immune system cells can communicate, they can act in concert, they can act in a modulated fashion, so they act appropriately. And that's really the key of these mushroom compounds. It's immunomodulation, so the immune system works the way it's supposed to. But let me talk, I'll bring up some of the mushrooms specifically. Agaricus blasei is the one that really freaks me out because it has such a sexy story. So Agaricus blasei is a mushroom. It's grown all over the world now, but it was principally from Brazil, the Piedade region of Brazil, which is outside of Sao Paulo. And in the 1970s, late 1970s, Japan's Holistic Cancer Center was doing studies where they were actually mapping cancer incidences all over the world. They were trying to see where is the most chance of getting certain cancers. And they were looking at genetic factors, environmental factors. They were looking at all this stuff to see what are the chances of getting cancer, what are the chances of not getting cancer by population, by diet. And it was a huge, huge undertaking. And if you imagine looking at the globe and looking at all the data they collected, there was this little spot in the middle of Brazil where nobody got cancer. Nobody got cancer. It didn't exist. It didn't happen. And it was so statistically impossible that these researchers just flew to Brazil. What is going on here? What has happened? And they knew it was environmental because people that lived there and then moved away had the same basic risk of cancer if they as the people that live there, that live somewhere else, and the people that moved to that area got the benefits. So they knew it was environmental in some way. And after years of research, they pinpointed that there was this mushroom, Agaricus blasei, and it was a staple in their diet in the Piedade region of Brazil. They cooked with it, they made tea out of it, they made poultices. It was just something that was part of their everyday life. So the Japanese were the first ones just freak out. They published a seminal paper in 1980 on the benefits of Agaricus blasei. Now, where this kind of intersects with me is in the mid 90s, I was working with the Duke University Comprehensive Cancer Center. And we were working on a type of drug called it was camptothecin analogs, which are topoisomerase 1 inhibitors. I know this is a lot of big words for biochemistry, but basically camptothecin works by preventing cell division. So it goes into the cell and it prevents cell division. And since cancer cells divide the most, it stops cancer cells from dividing. So we did all these studies with camptothecin. We eventually made irinotecan and topotecan and 5-hydroxy-7-methoxycamptothecin. Our drugs are available today that came from that research. Well, in 98, they did a study with irinotecan, one of the camptothecin analogs I actually worked on, and they went head to head against Agaricus blasei, and Agaricus blasei outperformed the chemotherapy without any side effects. So in that paper, there was 2 papers published out of that research. It was absolutely amazing, just this natural mushroom. So that's and again, the mechanism is very straightforward. It's all the great antioxidant compounds, the natural anti-inflammatory compounds, but principally it's the communication compounds, the compounds that allow the immune system to talk to itself and be able to function properly. So there's 7 different mushrooms in this. They are micronized. It's a micronized powder. And then I mix it with my micronized activated zeolite. And this is important because there is a synergy between the zeolite and the mushrooms. The zeolite actually, first of all, allows better absorption of the beta glucans. It actually becomes a nutritional enabler by blocking toxins and other things in the gut, so you get better value from the mushrooms as you eat them. The other thing too is whenever you have 2 or more compounds that have the same properties through different mechanisms of action, you wind up with synergistic benefit. So for example, the zeolite is an antioxidant, but it's an antioxidant because small single free radicals, small molecules, can be trapped by the zeolite directly. The mushrooms function as antioxidants because they're proton acceptors and proton acceptors, proton donors, electron acceptors, electron donors. So they actually quench the free radical cascade. So they're both antioxidants through different distinct mechanisms. So when you take them together, you get a much broader reaction. When we talk about synergy, that word is way overused. But in research, when you talk about synergistic benefit, that means you get a greater benefit together than their addition, than their additive benefit. So that means 1 + 1 = 4 or 10 or 20. It doesn't equal 2. So you see a much greater benefit than you normally would see from each one alone added together. And that's what we see with this product. We get incredible antioxidant ability because of the zeolite plus the mushroom blend. They're also all anti-inflammatory. They have a natural anti-inflammatory mechanism. And then lastly, anti-mutagenesis. The zeolite has 2 published studies in its use as an adjunct to chemotherapy and radiation in cancer. And so does all of these mushrooms. Every one of these mushrooms has been studied in different versions of mutagenesis. So I'm not saying that we're treating cancer. I'm saying that it's anti-mutagenic, which means natural mutations that occur in the body are going to be less likely to occur in the presence of these compounds. Your body, we get cancer every day. Every single day, every one of us gets cancer. But our body stops it. Our natural immune system, our tumor suppressor genes isolate that cancer, they recognize it, and they destroy it. They stop it, they induce apoptosis or necrosis, and they stop that cancer from spreading. The problem is when you are immunocompromised, you have a weakened immune system, you have a poor diet, you're overweight, there's reasons that things aren't functioning properly, and that cancer then can replicate. And when the cancer replicates, that's when you get enough cells that it overwhelms the body's ability to deal with it. But if we have additional mechanisms in place that can target those mutations before they actually become cancerous, that's a huge deal. And that's why I talk about anti-mutagenesis, not exactly treating cancer. When we talked about the zeolite, I've talked about this before, we've actually measured an upregulation of the P53 tumor suppressor gene, which is a gene that actually turns on when a cell says that it's cancerous. It turns on the gene. And, I'm a nerd, so I'm always going to go back to like sci-fi movies. But if anyone ever saw the movie Tron was a watchdog program. It was a program that was sent into the system to basically protect the system. So I think of the zeolite as like Tron, it's going to try and protect the system and turn on the right genes and things like that. So that's what it does. In the presence of the zeolite, the p53 tumor suppressor gene turns on and induces apoptosis, which is programmed cell death or cell suicide. The wonderful thing about apoptosis is that it doesn't leave tissue behind. It's not necrotic. It doesn't leave dead cells behind. When apoptosis takes place, it creates peroxide inside the cell to kind of digest the cell. Then it sends a signal out to white blood cells to come eat me. And the white blood cells eat the cell. So you get complete resolution of that cell. So apoptosis is the favorable way to kill bad cells versus necrosis, which is the cell just dies and it's sitting there. And that's where you get scar tissue and things like that. So as I said, all of these mushrooms have been studied in their anti-mutagenesis effect and their ability to induce apoptosis in mutagenic cells. So it's really, really, really cool stuff with little to no side effects. I will tell you this, these are natural mushrooms from nature. And so if they have proteins, mushroom proteins, and if you are allergic to mushrooms, you may not be able to use the product. So, and I say this, you may not, because I've actually met people that told me they were allergic to mushrooms and they used the product successfully. So it might not have what you think you're allergic to or what you think you're sensitive to, but I will warn you, as a natural product, if you're allergic to any of the components in it, you might want to try a very little bit at a time or just not use the product because, as I said, it is a natural product. Otherwise, we really have seen no side effects from using the mushroom blend with the zeolite, the Zmunity mushroom. Everything's beneficial. When we talk about dosing, we do recommend 2 a day. Preferentially, it would be 1 in the morning and 1 at night. Spread it out. We have seen some additional benefit, especially people who are compromised, taking 4 a day, 2 in the morning and 2 at night. We've actually seen no additional benefit on more than that. So when we talk about people taking a lot, we really don't see an additional benefit in people using 8, 10, 20 at a time. This is like, how many walkie-talkies can your immune system use? If I gave 30 million walkie-talkies to the army, they're only going to use the ones they need. So we've seen that really maximizing benefit is probably about 4 a day. So 2 in the morning and 2 at night, if you wanted to really take a higher dose. Aside from that, as I said, I'm going to put together a PowerPoint that gives a more complete story, starting with the immune system and immune system signaling, and then into each of the mushrooms and what they do individually, and then how they work synergistically. But otherwise, Robin, I think I hit all the bullet points that we wanted to hit.
That was awesome, Rick. And something that stood out to me this time, when you talked about the apoptosis, I talk about that a lot with the cell defender.
I'm just going to correct you. The second P is actually silent.
Okay.
So APTOSIS, it's atosis. So the P is silent, so it's apoptosis.
Okay.
I even hear scientists say apoptosis, but the second P is silent.
Okay, cool. I'll see if I can say that right the next time. Okay, so when you talked about that, and is it necrosis? Is that how you say it? The other? Okay, so when you said the necrosis leaves behind the trash, the other one doesn't, but it's interesting because then if you bring the cell defender, I just thought that was kind of interesting because you've got cell defender that will actually help with both of those mechanisms also.
Right, and we've seen tumors where, remember, almost every tumor that has any bulk to it has a dead core because the tumor grows and at some point oxygen, blood, nutrients can't get inside the core of the tumor. So you wind up with necrotic tissue, dead tissue in the center of every tumor. And so what happens is even when you can induce apoptosis, you still wind up with that core of necrotic tissue. And we talked about this a long time ago when we had a patient with astrocytoma, a brain tumor, that they operated on over at MD Anderson Cancer Center, and it was detached. When they went in to debulk the tumor, it had detached. So the only thing left was the dead core of the tumor because they had induced apoptosis in the surrounding cells that actually had connected it to the brain tissue. So, and then when I did that call with them, I was all ready to talk about mechanisms and safety, and their only question was, how do we get this stuff?
I've got one more question because I asked you this the last time and I wish it was recorded because a lot of us have followed you, have been with you for these several years. And we use the older product that you developed with the mushrooms and way back when you developing it, when you were manufacturing it, it was wonderful, but you did have to, I mean, I took quite a few. I mean, sometimes I was taking 3, 3, and 3, or 4, 4, and 4 when I was not well, or when I was going through the hot flash thing, you know, I'd have to do 3, 3, and 3. And this one here, what would be the difference for those of us who have followed you and have had that prior product? Now we have this awesome product. You kind of already addressed it, but just give me a little more pinpoint of the difference here of what you've done, if you don't mind.
So well, there's two issues. The first one is there, and I hate to say so simplistically, if anyone ever watched Spinal Tap, their amplifier goes to 11. You know, they say, why doesn't it just go to 10? Well, mine goes to 11. Well, these are 7 mushrooms, not 6 mushrooms. So you get an extra mushroom here that has additional properties that are synergistic with the other 6. So it's a 7 mushroom blend, not a 6 mushroom blend. This is a much stronger blend as an extract with much higher levels in the 1,3,1,6 beta glucan than we were used to in the previous product. And then lastly, and this is probably the most important thing, is it's pre-micronized. It comes in at 1 micron. So it's an incredibly fine product that has incredible absorption in the gut. The product that we used to use, and I don't want to talk about management or management decisions about using cheaper materials, but that was average particle size was 50 microns. So you didn't get as much absorption of that product. You were breaking down things in the gut, you were getting absorption, and we obviously had benefit, but this is literally exponentially stronger than the last product.
Oh, thank you for that. I really appreciated you repeating that. And then we did have some questions. Are you ready for questions on the Zmunity, Rick?
Sure.
Okay, so if someone is scheduled for a surgery, would they need to stop the Zmunity or any of our products prior to the surgery?
No, there's none of the products actually have any kind of contraindication. When you talk about surgery, especially, the biggest issue is thrombosis, is whether or not it thins the blood or thickens the blood, where you can have issues with bleeding. None of our products have any effect on prothrombin time, so there won't be any issue with pre-surgery.
Awesome. And then another question, how about taking, I think you kind of already addressed this, but your thought on how about taking an extra Zmunity at noon? So maybe one.
Yeah, well, listen, we've done half-life studies, we've done technetium studies, and it lasts anywhere from 8 to 17 hours, depending on the individual, how often you go to the bathroom, your diet, and things like this. And some of the compounds, some of the beta glucans get stored. They actually get stored in certain tissues. So this is something that gets better and better over time. So ideally, and this is where I talk about, nobody wants to spread things out. Compliance always goes down when you tell people to take things throughout the day. Everybody wants to have a baggie of pills and you take them in the morning and you're done. But the fact is, if you do spread it out throughout the day, you're going to get better benefit. You're going to get a better level of active ingredients throughout the day. So if you want to take, I said 1 in the morning, 1 at night, if you want to take 3, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you just want to spread it out to get the best benefit.
Awesome. And then there was just kind of another kind of saying it again real quick. Really, you're saying the maximum that we need here because of the validity, the value of what you just described about these mushrooms is that really 4 a day is really a max of what you're saying that we really need to stay well as far as the balance in the immune system.
Yeah, I don't want to say, I mean, you can take as much as you want. It's not going to hurt you. I'm just saying that, and I do the same thing when I talk about the zeolite. When you take the zeolite drops, we don't see a lot of additional benefit over 15 drops at a time because of absorption. So if you really want to get the most bang for your buck, we have not seen additional benefit over 4 a day. Now, listen, we're talking about the average size person. So if you're huge, if you're Darren, and Darren, I stand next to Darren, I feel like I'm standing in a hole. He might use a little bit more because he's a much bigger person. But on average, with the studies that have been done with these blends, we see that 4 really kind of maximizes benefit. We don't see additional benefit over 4.
Okay. And I think this question, I think you answered it, but we could go over it real quickly. Are the mushrooms grown together? I think that's what you're saying, is that actually brings a competition in and makes them even more valuable.
Right. Now, this is a huge company that grows these mushrooms. They have over 3 miles of caves that they grow mushrooms in underground. And they do grow all these mushrooms separately, but they also grow together. This particular blend is called the Immune Assist Supreme. and it's made specifically to spike levels of 1,3,1,6 beta glucan. So these are grown together specifically for that purpose. And it is their most expensive blend because it's got the research behind it, but it is amazing. It's like I said, it's exponentially better than anything else that's out there.
Okay, and one thing you just said that we used to really talk about was that they're grown underground. Is there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, mushrooms like cold, dark, wet places. They're fungus. So
Okay.
you're not ever going to see a mushroom in bright daylight. Like mushrooms grow in dead and decaying plant material. So you want old, rotted wood that it's growing on, and they grow especially well in dark, cold, wet places.
Okay. It seems like we were talking before history. Our history is maybe that the underground was also more pure. They could keep the air. There's something about the air being pure, that, keeping the facility pure, that kind of a thing. Is that?
Yeah, well, this is a GMP, GLP, GCP facility. So it's particle concentration, all that stuff is monitored, especially when you deal with funguses, because a lot of funguses in spores, so they send spores out. So you want to control that. You don't want to have a mushroom blasting spores out all over the place. You want it controlled, because then you can contaminate other groups of growing mushrooms. So everything is highly controlled when it comes to air exchange and things like that.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah, let me just talk about that, because I throw out a lot of initials. For people that don't know, the FDA has certain criteria for good manufacturing practices, that's GMP, good clinical practices, GCP, and good laboratory practices, GLP. And they're very high standards when you're making these sort of products. So you follow all of those. We, of course, are a GMP certified laboratory, and CGMP, so it's current good manufacturing practices. And so if you know that they're following those rules, then you know that they're making highly tested quality products.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, we've taken care of the chat. Is there anybody else that has a question about the Zmunity? Or actually, Rick, if you're okay, we could just open up for questions for you in any of the products. But chat would be better, guys, if you can do that chatting. If you just don't know how to chat and you want to, what are you good, Rick, if we unmute, and if they want to unmute?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw one question we didn't answer.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, someone asked about enzymatic method on preparation. So no, we don't use ELISA or enzymatic methods for preparation. The problem with enzymatic is potential for enzymatic degradation. The enzymes can break apart the beta glucans. We want to avoid that. Okay, so it's not, they're not grown enzymatically, they're not extracted enzymatically.
Go ahead, Rick. You're good at just reading. You can do multitasking, so go for it. Read those.
Someone asked about blood clots. I said before, none of our products have any effect whatsoever in prothrombin time. So they don't thin the blood, they don't thicken the blood. There's no issue with thrombosis or thinning the blood. Someone asked about Zmunity and inflammation. Remember that inflammation is an immune-mediated response. Inflammation happens because the immune system thinks there's something wrong and your body needs to stop. It needs to be isolated. So whether it's a physical injury, a trauma, or whether it's, your lungs are having trouble, your body looks at inflammation as a good thing. It's trying to stop you from doing something so you can heal. The problem is, especially chronic inflammation, can lead to all sorts of damage. And we know even heart disease is an inflammatory process. So if you take anti-inflammatories, if you mediate or modulate the immune system's inflammatory response, then you can even reduce risk of heart disease, vascular disease, and things of that nature. One of the things I want to do as we become a more mature company, I've talked to Neil about clinical research. And I really want to start doing studies, especially in the anti-inflammatories, looking at things like C-reactive protein. Because in individuals, we've seen a drop, basically a dramatic drop in C-reactive protein in people using the product, which is an inflammatory marker. So when we see that drop, we know that chronic inflammation is getting reduced, which is very, very healthy.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cell Defender or Zmunity better for addressing allergies?
That's a great question. Because again, they're two different mechanisms. There's probably a synergy between them. So allergens themselves trigger an immune response. Again, allergies are caused because you have a hyperactive immune response. Your immune system overreacts, creates histamines. Histamines make your nose run and you cough and you break out in a rash. So you take antihistamines to prevent that from happening. Again, it's all caused by an overactive immune system. So if you're taking immunomodulatory agents, that's going to help with allergies. The zeolite, we feel, traps allergens directly. So some allergens you're taking are going to be trapped by the zeolite and prevent them from interacting in the body. So we think that there's two different mechanisms at play. I'd probably say if you do have a lot of allergies, you'll probably be better served with the Zmunity specifically than the Cell Defender. But I'm also going to tell you that I believe the Cell Defender is the core product that everybody should be using, and then everything else gets added to that.
Absolutely. I think all of us that are involved agree with that, that the Cell Defender is really the first line of defense. We got to get rid of that trash.
Yes.
and then everything else is going to work better too. So awesome. Thank you. Let's see. We got a few more coming in here. Okay.
Robin, can I say something?
Sure. Rosemary, what you got?
Okay. I was just reviewing my text messages from Carol because she was commenting on Trisha, who we talked about with her issues. Her energy is off the charts now since mushrooms, just like Finley. Now, Finley is Carol's dog, and she sent me a video I can't show you. She says it's the downside of mushrooms. These two dogs who were lethargic and not feeling well and had all kinds of problems, she sent me a video of them running around the house. So, Rick, there is a downside to mushrooms. More energy, off the charts energy.
Yeah, that's great. You know, we also, this isn't a product that Avini has currently, but my company also makes a version of the Plus Relief for dogs and cats. It's Pet Pain Away. So we're talking about potentially making that available in a form for Avini. So it'll be a product for pain and inflammation, dogs and cats. And it's really kind of cool, especially in older dogs and cats. When you see a dog or a cat that can barely move, within 24 hours, they're jumping up and down on the couch or jumping up on the counter. It's like you get a puppy and a kitten back. So it's very cool.
Yes, please. I want it right now for my son's dog. Yes.
All right.
I'd be able to give the oral spray to a dog.
We don't recommend it because dogs have a sensitivity to xylitol, which is the sweetener in the product. We can use it. It's a very low amount of xylitol, but we really don't recommend it.
Okay. So I want the paint, the stuff for the pets right away.
Okay.
I want it.
Just along with all of the other things you're doing, Rick, we want you to add that, okay, right now.
Okay, it's on my list.
Okay, doctors have been warning people with rheumatoid arthritis to avoid mushrooms. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, so again, it's a misnomer. Rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmune. So you want to avoid anything that spikes immune system reactivity. Anything you take that increases the immune system activity is going to make the disease worse. And in fact, the way most autoimmune diseases are treated are with immunosuppressives, shut off the immune system. And if you've seen those commercials, it sounds like a nightmare. You know, before using Enbrel or Humira, have your doctor check you for infection. Have your doctor check you for tuberculosis. Infections are much more likely with the drugs. Cancer and death has happened. That's in the commercial as you're watching this guy talk about how great his golf game is now since he started taking the drugs. You know, so yeah, it's a problem. You don't want to do anything that increases immune system reactivity. What we do is we have clinical evidence that these mushrooms, this blend of mushrooms, does not increase immune system activity. It modulates the immune system activity. So this is, you know, I think sometimes doctors saying no always makes you seem smart whenever you can say no. And as an example, years ago, Ted Theodosakis wrote the book, The Arthritis Cure, and it was all about glucosamine. And glucosamine is a molecule that has glucose in the center. It's amidated glucose, but it does help rebuild your joints over time. And all these doctors were saying, diabetics can't use it. Diabetics can't use it because it's glucose. Well, no, it's glucosamine, and it doesn't turn into glucose. And even if it all turned into glucose, it's only 1,500 milligrams a day, 1.5 grams. That's less than what's in your cup of coffee. So it's not going to hurt a diabetic. So it's a ridiculous statement where they can just jump on it and think they understand the biochemistry. So in this case, yes, there's nothing wrong with someone with rheumatoid arthritis using the product. In fact, I could guess that they're going to see a lot of benefit from it.
And then someone said, could you speak to how Zmunity helps with mood?
That's interesting because especially reishi, There's studies on reishi and dopaminergic and serotonergic reactions, but also with the zeolite. I think I put that study up. It's one of the references in my white paper where they found that mice that ate clinoptilolite had more serotonin receptors. They had more, so we could be an antidepressant, but we're not really looking at that specifically. But yeah, a lot of mushrooms have compounds that improve dopaminergic and serotonergic reaction. And part of it is platelet activity. It's modulating platelet activity because platelets actually secrete serotonin. So if you have healthier platelet function, you're going to have higher levels of serotonin.
And then someone saying they have the Hashimoto's and currently taking the Nano Silver and the Cell Defender. Is the Zmunity recommended to helping with autoimmune, which you've kind of partly answered, but
yeah,
I'll let you
absolutely. And like I said, it's immunomodulatory. It would be highly beneficial.
Okay, and then hypothyroidism, we'll add.
Okay, well, I'll talk about that. You know, I've actually given this lecture before, Rob. I'm sure you've heard it. It's one of my soapbox lectures. I used to hate it when a woman would go to the doctor and she might be a little overweight or very overweight. She talks about being tired all the time. And the doctor goes, aha, you have a sluggish thyroid. And they put them on Synthroid or Armor Thyroid or L-thyroxine, which is the generic. There's no such thing as a sluggish thyroid. It's a ridiculous statement. Now, there are people with thyroid issues. Most thyroid issues are autoimmune, like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease. But you can have thyroid cancer, you can have thyroid nodules. There's a lot of things that can happen to your thyroid. But for most of us, the issue is entirely dietary. And I'm going to give this, hopefully, a pretty quick lecture. And I hope I don't bore too many people because this is basic thyroid biochemistry. All right, so your adrenal glands make something called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. The thyroid stimulating hormone goes to the thyroid and tells the thyroid to make a hormone called T4. It's called T4 because there's 4 iodine atoms in the molecule. Remember this, 4 iodine atoms in the molecule. T4 then goes to the liver and gets converted to T3 using an enzyme called glutathione peroxidase. The cofactor in glutathione peroxidase is selenium. So glutathione peroxidase needs selenium to convert T4 to T3. T3 is the active thyroid hormone. So when I see someone's blood work and I look at their thyroid panel, I can't tell you how many times the doctor says their thyroid panel is normal, because you look and it's all in normal ranges. But you see the TSH is at the high end of normal, the T4 is at the high end of normal, and the T3 is way at the low end of normal. Well, that difference between T4 and T3 is enough to cause dysfunction, enough to cause hypothyroidism. So let me ask you this, now that I've given this lecture, if you have high T4, high normal T4, and low T3, what do you think you're missing from your diet? Come on, anybody. To convert T4 to T3, you need selenium. Okay, selenium is a cofactor in glutathione peroxidase. You only need about 200 micrograms of selenium a day. We can get it in our food, but I'll tell you, in the 1980s, 20,000 people died in China of Cation-Beck syndrome. They couldn't figure out what was happening. All these people are dropping dead, and it looked like severe hypothyroidism. And it was all because they had farmed out all the selenium in the soil, and they weren't getting any selenium in their diet. All they needed was 200 micrograms a day, and they were fine. Okay, so you need selenium. Now, imagine that you have low T4, high TSH, low T4, low T3. Well, that's an iodine deficiency. And where this comes from is really horrible. So in the 1920s, 1930s, we had people with goiters. Remember goiters? A swollen thyroid? That was very common. Goiters were everywhere. When's the last time you saw a goiter? The fact is, in the 1930s, 1940s, we started iodizing our salt. We started adding iodine to salt so everybody would get at least a little bit of iodine to prevent thyroid dysfunction and goiters. But what's happened, especially in the last 20 years, is doctors are telling everyone to go on a low salt diet for health. So all these people go on a low salt diet. Suddenly, it's great they're not getting salt and they're regulating their blood pressure, but now they're not getting iodine either. And they wind up with hypothyroidism because they're iodine deficient. So in this case, they say, listen, don't go on a zero salt diet, go on a low salt diet, add potassium to your diet, because potassium and sodium work together to manage liquid in a cell liquid in and out of the cell, so that'll prevent high blood pressure. Or get a good iodine source, bladderwrack, kelp. There's lots of things out there, seafood, that are high in iodine. But if you have hypothyroidism, especially if they tell you have a sluggish thyroid, 99.9% of the time you can deal with it with dietary intervention.
And I would say also cleaning out your body. We had someone, we have testimonies, everything that you've addressed here, we have testimonies. And again, we're not making medical claims when we give our testimonies. We're just saying, hey, these mechanisms that we have with our products, man, we're just getting, our bodies just have amazing help. So just get on them and try them and bring your own testimony to the call. So did you see
I've
that?
said this before. I've said that the body is a miracle. It's amazing. I mean, if you've ever just gotten a cut or a scrape and watched it heal, how fascinating is that? Watching the healing process. It's amazing what our bodies do naturally. And what happens because of these toxins and these heavy metals, these volatile organic compounds, it gets in the way of natural metabolic processes. And when the zeolite takes all that stuff out and the body can do what it's supposed to do, everything starts to fix itself. So yeah, that's another soapbox lecture.
So on the Zmunity, I mean, it's just whole food. So, but someone's asking, could I take it long term? What's your response on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just whole food.
Oh,
And
Rosemary answered my selenium question. Congratulations, Rosemary.
Do you see that other question there? The catching the metals, talking about zeolite, our cell defender, catching the metals and the pathogens, such as bacteria.
Okay, so yeah, zeolite is a cage-like structure. It's, if you saw pictures of it, I think I have a picture right here in my white paper. Don't I have a picture? No, I don't. Okay, it's in my zeolite white paper, but it's not my Zmunity white paper. But it has a cage-like structure, and it's got, if you look at like a cube, two sides have no pores on it, two sides have small pores, and two sides have big pores and small pores. And depending on the size of the metal and the charge of the metal, it'll get sucked up by the zeolite and trapped inside. The zeolite loves small, highly charged metals. And it just so happens, this is God's own creation, this is nature. All the stuff that's bad for us tends to be small with a higher charge. And all the stuff that's good for us is bigger with a lower charge. So the zeolite loves mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, tin, bismuth, aluminum, antimony, loves it. It doesn't like calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, selenium, iron. It doesn't like the stuff that's good for us. Even at low levels, biomolecules that are necessary for life, like copper and manganese, have very low affinity for the zeolite. So the zeolite is just so good at sucking up the bad stuff and removing it from the body. Additionally, volatile organic compounds are flat compounds that will adhere, they adsorb to the outside of the zeolite cage. And there's all sorts of studies that show the zeolite is really good at grabbing onto those flat molecules. And that's benzene, toluene, dichlorobenzene, phthalates, dioxins, all these horrible, potentially carcinogenic chemicals that we're exposed to all the time that normally build up, especially in our fatty tissue, and cause all sorts of disease and dysfunction. So the zeolite is really just very, very good at taking all of that junk and pulling it out of the body. Now, someone talked about Lyme pathogens. I'm going to be very specific about this. So Lyme disease is caused by a bacteria called Burgdorferi. And most of us get it when a tick bites you that is infected. If you get Lyme's disease, it is vital that you get antibiotics. You have to kill the bacteria first. Because what happens with Lyme disease is over time, the bacteria produces these very complex endotoxins, these giant chemicals that go in and they attack the nerves, they attack the liver. And by stage 3 Lyme disease, it can cause all sorts of neurodegeneration. So I recommend that if you are Lyme positive, and this is the season right now, if you have Lyme disease, if you know you have Lyme disease or get tested for it, go get the antibiotics. Whether you like antibiotics or now, whether you're anti-medicine or regular doctors, I'm telling you, kill the bacteria. Get the antibiotics first, get rid of the bacteria. After that, you have something called post-Lyme syndrome. That's when you still have that junk in the body that the Lyme disease, the Burgdorferi, created. In that case, using these products will help clean that out, help the body flush out those toxins and break them down.
Awesome. We have some wonderful questions and concerns, and I know we're running out of time with Rick. But I want to let you guys know there are testimonies on each one of these. Although Rick, this is kind of a tough one. Could you talk about, and maybe after we let Rick go, we can spend a little bit more time and have some testimonies to help people with their questions. But we also will be spending time next week on all of these. I'm making notes, and somebody else can help me make notes of all these questions, make sure we get everybody answered next week. Rick, on the breast implants, and that having an accident where the bag ruptured, that's a very desperate situation. Could you, do you see that's causing many health issues?
Yeah, and that's silica gel causes silicosis, which actually is immunosuppressive. It shuts down the immune system, can cause all sorts of damage. And most of what you see in silicosis is usually localized infection. Where people, especially if they say they have a yeast infection or whatever, that starts to come out in skin, you see a rash and things like that. That's why I believe most breast implants by the 80s and 90s, they were using saline breast implants. So I'm not a big fan of silicone breast implants because of the danger of silicosis. And it's kind of funny because the zeolite itself is an aluminosilicate. The zeolite has silica in it, but it's not free silica. It's silicon that's trapped in the zeolite cage that functions it's like the bars of the prison. It doesn't get out. So the problem with the silica gels is if there's free silica, it can depress the immune system health. And so I never recommend silicone gel implants. If you do, you really need to have them removed, especially if there's been a puncture. You need to have the area lavaged, cleaned out thoroughly. And then if you're going to replace them with saline.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that. And I don't want to keep you more than an hour, and we've just about got you there. You know, I appreciate you and Neil and Doug, you know, and Dr. Sampson getting all these tools for us and doing that very quick video of the 4 products. That's excellent. And if any of you are on the line and don't have that, we want to make sure you all get that. So thank you for doing that. Could you mention, I feel like we have 2 products. Well, actually all 4 products are incredible, but the Cell Defender has been just amazing for all of us with miracles after miracles. And now we've added the silver. And could you talk about the synergy of the 2 together with the things that everybody's asking all these questions? I think both of these products are very important for everyone to be taking for anything
Right.
they're.
And I think I was pretty vocal. I've hated silver for years. Silver was a big deal in the 50s and 60s to treat rheumatoid arthritis. And the reason was that silver is incredibly immunotoxic. It destroys the immune system. And so people who took it for rheumatoid arthritis had a benefit because it's immunosuppressive and you're stopping an hyperimmune response in rheumatoid arthritis. But for the average healthy person, that you don't want that. And so I constantly for many years said, do not use internal silver, only use it topically. And topically is wonderful. There's been these wonderful silver compounds. My kids, when they were little, used to get molluscum. Anyone have kids and deal with molluscum? Horrible little virus. They get these little spots with like a hard little center, and they're incredibly contagious, and they don't go away. They last forever. You put a little bit of silver compound on those, they go right away. So I've never really been a fan of silver. And then I met Dr. Gary Samuelson. I started looking into research. And the trick is, it's not just silver, it's the nano structured silver. So whereas the individual ionic silver can interfere with immune system signaling, when you get these clusters, these 7 nanometer clusters of silver molecules, it doesn't do that. It doesn't interfere with signaling. What it does, though, is it interferes with bacterial cell walls, with viral plasmids. It basically can go in and attack viruses, attack molds and yeast and things like that. And we've always known that silver was incredibly toxic to bacteria, viruses, molds, yeast, spores, things like that. The problem is it was also toxic to humans. In this case, we finally have something that seems to be completely safe to the human system, but attacks those biological invaders. So if you look at the Cell Defender as the zeolite that's taking out heavy metals and inorganic toxins and volatile organic compounds, it's taking out all those chemicals, and then the silver getting all the biological invaders. So together, there's actually a pretty interesting synergy between the 2. both of them are responsible for cleaning out your body of different things. So it's fascinating. The work is fascinating. I think you put up Dr. Samuelson's PowerPoint. It's really, really good. He has great slides in there that kind of go into how this stuff works and why it's safe and the research behind it. But listen, I'm the toughest sell in the world. I did not like silver. I told him I didn't like silver, and he convinced me. So that's pretty interesting, you know. So now I'm a fan. In fact, I don't have any with me. Oh, do I? Here we go. Oh, here's my bottle of silver. So I don't know if you guys saw this, but this is amazing. So we're using the frosted bottles, and the new labels are these clear labels. And for some reason, I don't know why, where the clear label goes in, you can see through the frosting. Isn't that amazing?
That's cool.
I don't know why. It's physics. Basically, the glue on the label must have the same.
That's my deal. That's called refraction.
Yeah. Basically, the glue on the label must have the same refractory index as the frosted glass. But doesn't that look cool? You have frosting, and then just where the label is, you can see right. It's like a window into the product. So this is all the new stuff that we're making now. It's incredible. It's completely standardized. And yeah, look, I got it. I'm using it. So
One last question, and I just can't leave out the plus relief. It has made such dramatic changes in people's lives. And I wanted to ask you, I think I heard you say, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, it is a homeopathic drug. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And what is it? Did you have to get it approved by the FDA? We're just getting questions from medical people. It's actually awesome, Rick, because we actually even have a new lead in that we can use. You know, it's wonderful to have all 4 products to be able to lead with any of them, and being able to lead with this. We're getting some of these questions. So tell me just a little bit about that before we let you go.
So in 2009, I was working with my biotech company. And it was a little frustrating to me because in my consulting company, I had Zeolite products. I was making multivitamins. I had a prostate product. I was making money with dietary supplements. But with my biotech company, we were working on clinical studies for adrenal neuropathy, for Lou Gehrig's disease, for multiple sclerosis. But we couldn't pay the bills. And so we sat down with the FDA and we said, where's the low-hanging fruit? Where's the fastest thing that we can bring to market? And at that time, we're looking at our MS drug, which is still going through phase 2 trials. So this is now 12 years later, and we're still going through phase 2 trials with my MS drug, which is an amazing drug, but we're still probably 3 years away from that drug being able to be marketed. That's how long it takes to get drugs through the clinical process and to market. But we talked about the different drugs we had. And at the time, we had the first version of this we called Cobroxin. And the FDA said, let me ask you this. Can you get it from a natural source? It was cobra venom. And we said, yeah, we can get it from cobras. We can milk cobras, or I can make it synthetically, whatever you guys want us to do. Well, they say, okay, natural source is good. What's your dose? And I said, our average dose is about 10 to 20 micrograms. And they told us that we actually qualified as a homeopathic drug, which is an infinitesimal dose of a natural product that's listed in the homeopathic pharmacopoeia. So in that case, homeopathic drugs do not require FDA approval. They do require FDA registration. And so all of our products are registered with the FDA. They all contain something called an NDC, a National Drug Code, is on all of our products. You'll see that on the Plus Relief products. And so it is considered a drug. The biggest thing to understand is because it's a drug, we can actually make medical claims on the product. That's different. Dietary supplements can only make what they call structure function claims. You can only support the healthy structure and or function of a healthy body or body part. You can make no claim as the treatment or prevention of any symptom or disease. With a homeopathic drug, you're actually allowed to make medical claims. So these products treat pain, chronic pain. They prevent chronic pain. They treat inflammation. And so when we talk about the different things, we talk about migraine headaches, we talk about with the gel, carpal tunnel syndrome, TMJ. These are legal claims we're allowed to make on the product because it is a registered drug.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. We have held you a little more than the hour, like I promised. Thank you so much. And for those of you who did not get your question answered, hang in. We'll have next week. We'll have Chip here. We'll have Neil. We'll have plenty of help. We need to let Rick go.
Well, Robin,
Thank
let me
you,
just add
Rick.
one more
Yes.
thing.
Oh, please.
Because you talk about plus relief. So I talked to Neil, and one of the exciting things we did in the day when in the Rexall days, we had something called emerging leadership, where people that recruit a lot of people get flown into Boca and get a tour of the facilities. So one of the things we talked about was exactly that. Some of the people that were down for the launch meeting got to see our facilities and see the manufacturing suite. What we didn't get to do is go down to the snake farm and meet the cobras. So so that's something people are shaking their head. But the fact is that that's something we'd like to do, you know. So as we become a more robust company, a bigger company, certainly come down to South Florida. You can see what we do, see us in action, and then if we really want to, we can take a tour down to the snake farm. And it's a really huge reptile farm. So we've got about 300 cobras right now on the line, but they have all sorts of snakes and turtles and crocodiles and monitor lizards and iguanas. It's a really cool farm. That actually supplies animals to zoos, aquariums, wildlife preserves all over the country.
And by the way, they're not king cobras.
No, we don't use king cobras. Actually, aren't cobras. I don't know if you know this. They're called cobras because they have a hood, but a king cobra is actually not in the cobra family. It's in the Ophiuchus family. It's not the Naja. NAJA is cobras. And there's over 20 true cobras. We use something called the Thailand monocled cobra, which only grows to about 6 feet long. It's a relatively small cobra.
Only.
For those of us who do not like snakes, 6 foot is long enough.
So just while we're on, before we get off, we're in the process right now. You know, that 8-minute video that Rick did is one of the best videos I think I've ever seen in terms of introducing the products. Over the next couple of days, we're redoing the website, and that's going to be on the square on the front page.
Awesome.
So
Very cool. Well, we are so proud, all of us. I know I'm speaking for all of us on here. We're just so proud to be affiliated, to be part of the Avini family. Thank you for all you guys have done in the last several months. All we can do is pray for you and thank you, but I know it's been tough. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's go ahead and just stop the recording if we could, Howard.